Hey, what's happening, everybody? It's another Sunday, and I'm wearing a tank top with perfect lighting and a perfect angle on my torso. Shocker, right? And, of course, it's Sunday, so that means we're going to talk about nutrition, so let's do it. Now, this week's topic comes from my boy Curtsy in Colorado. I miss you tons, bro, but he wanted to know what foods cause inflammation, and let's talk about that. I think that's a pretty interesting topic. And it's kind of multifaceted, so I'm going to break it down in a few different ways. I'm going to talk about a few different strategies to think about in terms of what foods cause inflammation and why, and how to mitigate those. Now, this could go into multiple different facets, whether it be food allergies or genetic predispositions, but for the sake of keeping this simple, I'm going to divide it up into three different sections. I'm going to talk about what it is, why that's the case, and then certain things you can do to help mitigate that or maybe even reverse it. And then at the end, I'm going to tie it all together, and I'm going to talk about a general strategy for inflammation using not medications or over-the-counter pharmaceuticals, but rather natural remedies. So let's get into it. All right, so if you pay any attention to social media, you're going to know this first one. And we're going to talk about omega-6 fatty acids, why they are so pervasive, and really what you can do about it. So, when it comes to the general trend in social media, particularly or I should say, in particular, Carnivore MD, he is the biggest preacher of the dangers of omega-6 fatty acids, and I think he's right. These omega-6 fatty acids, in particular linoleic acid, are highly inflammatory because as they're processed through the body, they create a byproduct called prostaglandin E2. Now, prostaglandin E2 is a precursor to an immune system reaction. So, in other words, if there's more prostaglandin E2 in your system, your immune system is signaled to react and essentially take care of an issue. Now, inflammation is caused by an immune system reaction, whether that be a foreign body inside of your body or some sort of injury or anything like that to help mitigate it. That's what inflammation is. And so with more prostaglandin E2 in the body, your immune system will be triggered and it will create essentially an attack, causing more chronic inflammation. Now, it sounds pretty severe, but realistically, it's a low-grade inflammation, so it's not something to be worried about once in a while. I think that the way that Carnivore MD portrays it, he portrays it in such a fear-mongering way, and I don't necessarily agree with that. I think it's more so about what you do consistently. I think if you have some potato chips once in a while, some like cheaper, nostalgia reminding potato chips, it's not going to kill you. But if you do it every day over the course of years or decades, you will certainly notice a difference in how you feel, how you function. Certain biomarkers, if you get blood work done, your overall health. I could certainly believe that, but once in a while, it's not a big thing. But the thing about omega-6 fatty acids, they're so prevalent. They're in everything. They're in every junk food that you can ever imagine. Especially like more commercially available ones or like more well-known ones. They're in every single restaurant food ever, especially anything that's fried. These oils are cheap. They're exponentially cheaper than, say, using like olive oil or coconut oil or avocado oil for frying or cooking. And so any restaurant food is going to contain those. So realistically speaking, if you wanted to be ultra anal about it and you wanted to make sure you had no omega-6 fatty acids in your diet, very simple. Eat whole foods, avoid processed food, avoid restaurant food. But that life sounds like it sucks. I don't want to do that. And I'm pretty anal about stuff. So realistically speaking, if you are cooking at home, the best thing to do is use good fats. So use a legitimate olive oil. Use avocado oil. Use coconut oil to cook. Use grass-fed ghee. Use grass-fed butter. All of those fats are either going to contain some omega-3 fatty acids when they're actually animal products, or they're at least going to be neutral and contain some valuable polyphenols, as opposed to a large amount or an unnatural amount of omega-6 fatty acids from these these seed oils. I talked a little about this in previous videos, but the fact of the matter is you could take an omega-3 supplement to help mitigate that, but reality is it's just not enough. If you are eating a consistently convenience-based diet, like I said. So omega-3 fatty acid supplements I think are very valuable, but in reality, for this particular issue, in terms of mitigating the damage that omega-6 fatty acids cause, I don't think that taking an omega-3 fatty acid would be worth it purely to lower the ratio of omega-3 to omega-6 fatty acids in your body. In addition, another big problem that a lot of people don't think about is the prevalence of omega-6 fatty acids in meats. So one of the interesting schools of thought that I've learned over the last few years is not necessarily what you eat, but it's what you eats. So if you're eating, let's say, steak, but you're eating a factory farm steak, that cow is fed a bunch of corn and soy, and so as a result, it's going to have more omega-6 fatty acids in its overall fat makeup as opposed to, say, omega-3s. The other thing to think about is if you're eating a, say, USDA prime grade steak that's been grain-fed or corn-finished, same problem. It's going to be rich and tasty, and it'll be delicious, but it'll be right with omega-6 fatty acids. So it's important to source your meat from a legitimate source. Ideally, if you'd be eating grass-fed beef for that reason, because the fat, when the cow is fat, is natural diet, the fat is much, much higher in omega-3 fatty acids and much more in a natural state. It's harder to find that in poultry and pork and other meats like that. In game meats, it's almost unlikely you'll ever find anything that's other than grass-fed. Certain game meats like bison, for example, by law have to be grass-fed. They are considerably more expensive. So if you are worried about that and you want to try to at least cut back from a meat perspective on the omega-6 fatty acids you're taking in, the best thing to do is go leaner meat and maybe try adding your animal fats from other sources. Like I said, grass-fed butter, grass-fed ghee, certain other dairy products, which we'll talk about later in this video. All of which can contain a better source of omega-3 fatty acids for you. Now, another source of food that causes significant amounts of inflammation, especially that people don't think about, is dairy that contains what's called A1 casein protein. Now, European dairy cows about 400 years ago underwent a genetic mutation by which their milk no longer contained A2 casein protein, which is what humans had been using for hundreds of years prior, and instead changed the structure to what's called A1 casein protein. And just to keep this simple, I know you guys don't want to hear me ramble about the science, but essentially this protein is a lot less absorbable by the body, and because of which it's actually treated as a foreign body more so in your body than A2 casein protein, for example. In addition, as A1 casein is processed by the body, it has a similar effect to what we'll talk about next, but it can create gut permeability and leaky gut. It can create junctions in the gut barrier, causing bacteria, foreign bodies, lipopolysaccharides to flow into your bloodstream, thereby causing an immune system reaction because those aren't supposed to be there. So your immune system activates to eliminate the foreign body, thereby causing low-grade chronic inflammation again. Now, I don't believe in eliminating dairy from the diet. In fact, I eat dairy just about every single day, but I source my dairy from proper A2 casein sources. So there are cow dairy items out there that are A2 casein protein. I'm sure that they're fine. I don't want to disparage them because I don't honestly know enough about those specific products, but something about that just sort of seems kind of off to me. I don't understand the science. I don't understand how they can get certain cows to give A2 casein milk and cream and yogurt and different products. So what I do is I lean more towards animals that simply can't produce A1 casein protein. So sheep and goat's milk are two examples of dairy that will be A2 casein protein. And I can certainly speak anecdotally. When I switched from cow dairy to goat kefir and to sheep's milk cheese, I felt a noticeable difference. In fact, my diet has, for the last couple of years, largely consisted of kefir and what was once Parmigiano Reggiano cheese. But when I learned this, I switched to goat milk kefir and I switched to Pecorino Romano cheese, which is a similar hard cheese made from sheep's milk instead of cow's milk. And I can tell you within the first couple of days, I noticed a big difference in my energy levels and my overall well-being was much higher. So I certainly recommend looking for your dairy sources from sheep and goat milk sources if you're going to be trying to eliminate A1 casein protein from your diet. It's a bit risky to think about, but there are a lot of cases that lactose intolerance is simply misdiagnosed as an A1 casein protein intolerance. So if you are feeling adventurous, I don't want to recommend you do anything stupid, but I do stupid shit all the time. So if you want to see if you are actually lactose intolerant, try some sheep's milk cheese, try some goat milk kefir, and see how it's tolerated for you. Maybe it'll help, because these are nutrient-dense foods, and they are valuable parts of a diet in moderation, and I think that they should be included, but in the proper manner. Now, the last one I'm going to talk about is a plant protein called lectins, and these are in certain grains, certain vegetables that are pretty pervasive in terms of what they can do. So these lectins will actually, as they're ingested, they will bind to certain cells in the body, macrophages, lymphocytes, and they will activate the immune system that way, causing the immune system to react. But also what they do is they're very, very devious about how they cause leaky gut. They can actually interact directly with the gut wall, creating openings. So bacteria, pieces of waste, lipopolysaccharides, various things that shouldn't be in your bloodstream are let into the bloodstream. And these can cause chronic low-grade inflammation. In addition, a lot of these items will have a lot of phytates and oxalates in them, causing them to inhibit the absorption of a lot of micronutrients that are super necessary. So what foods are these found in? Well, gluten is one of the more well-known lectins, obviously found in a lot of grains and breads. Nightshade vegetables are a big one, so potatoes, tomatoes, bell peppers, eggplant. Those are very high lectin foods. Soybeans are another one that are very, very high in these lectins. And so these foods, if ingested consistently, will create a lot of low-grade inflammation, eventually lead to things like arthritis, autoimmune diseases, things like that, depending on how sensitive you are. Now, there are some genetic predispositions where, depending on what your ancestry is and how your lineage has evolved, that some people have certain tolerances to these lectins, but that's very difficult to pinpoint. And if you were really that concerned about it, you could actually do tests to find out, but I'm not going to do that, and I don't think you will either. So the best thing that I would recommend to mitigate these is to, simply find better substitutes for a lot of those foods. I use sweet potatoes instead of potatoes consistently. I love potato chips, dude, and it sucks because sweet potato chips are not the same. But at least it forces me not to eat potato chips all the time, because I 100% would. Tomatoes, bell peppers, those are two of my favorite foods, and I try my best to avoid them, but when I do eat them, I notice a significant difference in my gut health. If you do eat tomatoes and bell peppers and things like that, at least remove the seeds and the skins. That's where the vast majority of lectins are found. If you do eat soy, at least find a fermented version like tempeh or any. I guess tempeh is really the only one I can think of. If you do eat soy sauce, find one that says naturally brewed. There is a shortcut that I'm not super familiar with to making soy sauce where they can create a similar taste and color, but it is a shortcut and actually increases the likelihood that you'll have an issue with lectins if you eat it. So just spend a little bit more money and find a naturally brewed soy sauce. But realistically speaking, lectins can be hard. Now, if you do eat bread, the difficult part is if you are going to eat it, first of all, I strongly suggest doing it in moderation. Bread in and of itself, and particularly the gluten, have a lot of interesting issues specific to it, not the least of which is wheat germ agglutinin and transglutaminase. These are two items that can cause significant weight gain, health issues over time. They can even do issues with your hippocampus and cerebellum, which is weird. And I love bread. So first of all, do enjoy it in moderation. If you do have bread, I strongly suggest actually getting it from a legitimate, small baker who makes a sourdough the natural way. I mean, it should be expensive. It should be $10 plus a loaf, because it takes them a couple days to ferment it. The fermentation process doesn't completely eliminate the lectins, but it does change the structure of them so that they are more tolerated by the body. But again, these are foods that should be enjoyed in moderation. Spicy foods, capsaicin is actually another version of a response to a lectin. So again, if you like spicy food, by all means, go for it. Just enjoy it in moderation. A good alternative, instead of eating, say, like a fresh jalapeno or like pickled jalapenos, is hot sauce, because most hot sauces are fermented. And in fermenting them, like I said, the lectin, the components of the lectin changes, so it doesn't affect you as much, if at all. And of course, hot sauce a little bit goes a long way. So I think it's a fantastic way to do that. Now, when a lot of people experience inflammation, their go-to is typical over-the-counter NSAIDs like Tylenol or Advil. Any number of pain relievers, Aleve, I don't even know any of the other ones, prescription anti-inflammatory and painkillers and things like that. They work by binding to what's called a COX-2 receptor, and this is what ultimately mitigates and eliminates the inflammation in your body. But a lot of these pharmaceuticals have pretty severe side effects when used consistently. Tylenol, for example, can have devastating liver effects. It can cause liver damage. Advil can cause leaky gut, which of course leads to more inflammation, which causes you to take more Advil. Don't think that that's not planned. So if you are experiencing inflammation a lot, or if you are like a competitive athlete, somebody who uses their body a lot and needs a bit of pain relief, there are a couple of strategies that I really like to enjoy. I should say a couple of strategies I really like to use. I like to enjoy. That's weird. But I've taken curcumin now for over 4 years. I've taken it every day, and this has the exact same mechanism of action as, say, something like Advil, but without any of the side effects. And in actuality, it can actually enhance a lot of the benefits of training fasted, which, again, I've talked about before. I've done consistently for years now. It can actually enhance the autophagy benefits of training fasted. It can mitigate brain inflammation too. There's a lot of cool things about taking curcumin. I like taking it with ginger for the digestive benefits as well. Just make sure, if you do find one, I'll leave a link in the description below for the one I take. But just make sure you find one that has a black pepper extract called BioPerine, so it activates the curcumin. Now, if you are somebody that is particularly sensitive to kidney stones, curcumin and turmeric does contain oxalates, and that can be an issue when taken over time. But one thing you can do to mitigate that is by taking in citrates in your diet. And if you follow what I like to do, I always drink water with lime juice in the morning, which has a significant amount of citrates. So it seems to have mitigated the effect of whatever oxalates are in turmeric for me. I have never experienced any issues as a result of like kidney stones or anything like that. And I'd like to think that, it's worked well for me that way. So citrates do mitigate the risk of oxalates, so if that's one way to go. Now, I've never used willow bark extract, but it's supposed to be an amazing pain reliever that has no side effects, especially those of the anti-inflammatories from pharmaceuticals. So it is certainly something to keep in mind to try. I'll leave a link in the description below for the ones that all the health gurus that I follow like. It's certainly worth a try. I just have never had it. I've never tried it because turmeric has always worked so well for me. But I'll leave it in the description below if you'd like to give it a shot, or if you are worried about taking in too many oxalates from turmeric in case your kidneys are compromised in any way. So I'll leave that in the description below as well. So just like any of the topics I talk about, this is multifaceted and it goes deep, but I want to keep it simple for you guys to give you a general blueprint to work off of so you can make small improvements in your daily life and begin to improve yourself, begin to feel better, begin to do things that you maybe wouldn't have done because you're in too much pain or you're too tired or whatever. So let me know in the comments below if there are any other questions you have, if there's anything I said that was really dumb, if the lighting isn't good enough on my shoulders. I think it is, although I think, like the right arm looks a little too bright, but the left shoulder's coming in hot. So I think it looks nice, but let me know in the description below. Thanks a lot, guys. I will talk to you soon.